So a lot of people have been asking me, Michael, what do you think about Amorim? Do you think he's going to do well at United? How do you think he's going to do overall? And they're quite concerned and they're quite surprised that my responses are so negative. Let me break it down. So first of all, I think Amorim's a good manager. We can clearly see what he's done at Sporting, the trophies that he's won in a short amount of time. He clearly knows what he's doing. He's a good up and coming young manager. And I respect the fact that he's come into the league. He's used this formation. He hasn't shied away. He didn't do what Ten Hag done. Well, after 2 games, he kind of scrapped it. No, he's seeing with the players he's got, are they going to fit into the system? And ultimately, seeing with the results and even the way that United play sometimes, we can clearly see that the system doesn't favour a lot of the players. So in a way, it's kind of exposed them, which I think is good. Because clearly, I think even for Ten Hag, regardless of how bad Ten Hag was, the players are a big problem. But the problem for Ten Hag was the fact that he actually brought those players in, right? So from that perspective with Amorim, I think he's doing 100% the right thing. And I fully agree with what he's doing, where he's not trying to get the best system for the players. He's using his system to try and get the players to fit into them. So that's all good. But my main concern for him is the fact that, so he signed a 2.5 year deal. And we know that time goes quickly. And in the Premier League especially, and especially with a team like United, where the scrutiny behind every draw and every defeat is going to be difficult for him. Because I think the way United are going at the moment, you guys are 13 now. Yeah, you've got Wolves away today. You've got Newcastle in a few days. And then you've got Liverpool away. Being realistic, the way you guys are playing, there is a possibility you could even lose all 3 of those games. Or if not lose all 3, you'll definitely lose to Liverpool. I don't think you'll get maximum points in the Newcastle game and the Wolves game, just given that Wolves have a new manager. Newcastle, even though you guys normally beat Newcastle at Old Trafford, Isak is on blistering form. Obviously, they've got their midfield, Tonali, Joel Linton, Bruno G. I think that's just going to overcome your midfield, and it's going to be decided. It's going to be like, I think the result of that game is going to be very dependent on whoever's in the middle for you guys. I think if you try and do a Bruno and Mainu, that's not going to work. If you have either Bruno or Mainu in that midfield, it's not going to work. So I think this is where I look at the manager. He's got to bring Casemiro. I think at the moment, what the system has exposed is that United probably only have about, I want to say 5 players who I feel like can fit in the system. At the moment, I think the only players that have actually looked good so far is probably, I'd say Maguire, surprisingly, he's actually looked quite good in that central back role. I think Euro's looked pretty good when he's come in. I think Mazraoui overall, even though the last 2 games against Spurs and Bournemouth he struggled, overall he's been good. So in the back line, those 3 I've been impressed with. De Ligt's kind of been in and out. He's been okay. I'm not going to overly gas him. He's been okay. I would have probably expected a bit more. But I think he can probably play in the system and play a role. So I've named 3 or 4 defenders. Obviously, Ahmad's been the star player. I think Ugarte's been pivotal as well. But other than those 5 or 6 that I've named, I feel like everyone else has really struggled in the system. And I think what Amorim needs to do is figure out who he's going to pick for that midfield too. My main issue for him is Bruno Fernandes. Some games Bruno Fernandes plays in the pivot. Some games he plays in that front 3. And regardless of where he plays, he's been a problem. Yeah, the last few games at points, when United are 0-0 in the game, you can see he tries his best to resist himself, not do the hoofball, and he tries to play some simple passes. But you can see as soon as United go 1-0 down every game, he reverts back to type and he starts playing all of these long balls, first-time passes without looking, shooting from 30 yards, and he needs to just calm himself down, and I don't think he has that in him. Since Sporting Lisbon, even since Udinese, Sampdoria, those days, he's always been quite a high-volume player. That's why his pass accuracy, long ball passes, accuracy will be about 70% and stuff like that. So I think he's always been a high-volume player, and I don't think that he has it in him to kind of reduce that. So I think he's going to be a big problem. But the fact that he's the captain, I think the fact that he played for Sporting as well, and the fact that maybe he's Portuguese, slightly he's been given a bit of backing from Amorim, and he's played most of the games. But I think until he gets dropped, there's going to be a lot of issues for United, especially in the next few games. So I think that midfield too needs to be sorted. Ugarte, clearly, he needs to be the ever-present, and then trying to figure out who can play next to him. I think that's going to be difficult. So if Amorim doesn't find something for that soon, he could go into trouble. Now, it's down to the wing-backs. United need to get tailor-made wing-backs because at the moment, there's a lot of chopping and changing. I think Mazraoui has the capability to play wing-back, but he's more defensive. Dallo, I've not been impressed with at all. He's an ever-present in the team and he's got a good attitude, but the quality, especially on that left wing-back, just isn't there. If it was me, I think Amorim needs to look at bringing Anthony right wing-back because I think he can link up well with Ahmad. And then he also needs to bring Mazraoui on that left wing-back just to give some defensive solidity, even if he can't attack, worst case. And the other problem that Amorim is going to have is the front line. Now, apart from Ahmad in the front line, let's be honest, there's not really anything there. So ultimately, for United to score more than a couple goals per game is going to be difficult. So it's imperative that Amorim can kind of shore things up to make sure that you guys don't leak goals. Because he did 3 against Bournemouth, 3 against Spurs. That's only in a couple of games. And I think you guys in the last 6 games, I think in 5 of those 6, you guys have conceded a set piece. So clearly that's an issue, and that's on the manager. So the main thing with Amorim is that I think he's a good manager, but I don't know if he's going to be given the time from the fan base to actually implement what he needs to implement. Because let me put out a scenario here. So at the moment, you guys are 13th. Let's just say things carry on as they are, which they very well could, given that your attack isn't very potent. Let's say you guys finish the season, you end up 11th. Let's say you go out in the Europa League round of 16 or the quarterfinals. Let's say you go out to Roma, Lazio, maybe even Spurs in like a quarterfinal or something like that. If you guys don't win anything and you come 10th and below, Amorim is going to be under huge pressure next season. Ineos as well are going to be under huge pressure to back him next season. So it's kind of a question for the fans. Are the fans ready to actually accept that you guys are going to possibly come bottom half the season? You're going to be losing a lot. I think we're expecting United to lose to teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, Aston Villa, even Man City. I know you beat them, but we're expecting you guys to lose to them. But I think where Amorim, in my opinion, he could fall down as these home games. Already lost to Bournemouth in dramatic fashion, 3-0. Already lost to Nottingham Forest, 3-2. You got Newcastle next. If Newcastle were to come and Isak does what he does, scores a brace, or worse yet, even a hat-trick, and United were to lose 3 home games on the bounce, regardless of if you like Amorim, if you don't, there's going to be questions with the team, who he's playing, and he's going to need to kind of do his best to combat that. And I think to an extent, he's going to need to make some big decisions, especially for the game tonight against Wolves. He's got to make some big decisions. And if he doesn't, his time could be over quicker than we think because he's only signed a 2.5-year deal. That's not a long time. Once the season's over, if he gets off to a bad start next season, honestly, that could be curtains for him if he's not careful.